Hello and welcome to the season roundup. Right, I don't know, we'll just wing this, I think, to some degree. Just to sort of talk about the season. I think in other seasons it may have a set format, but for now it's a bit of a different one because, one, the competition results don't really matter too much. You know, we can't really talk about different objectives. This season, the objectives were to just prepare us all about future preparation. One eye on next season, making sure we get promoted next season. Another eye on just thinking about future seasons. So it's through that lens. Whereas next season, for example, we'll be benchmarking ourselves against our promotion target, see if we reach it or not, and so on. And I think we'll have more of a team that's sort of established in our shape or whatever to talk about, improving it and whatever over time. So for now, we'll just see. I think we can talk about our purchases, our squads. Let's just go and our academy trialists. So I think we can just start with the trialists. That's easy, right? Let's start. So let's just look at the 6 here. Right, let's start with this guy. So in the end, not that happy about this guy, to be honest, but we're not unhappy about him. Something like that. He just ended up in because we speculated on players that attributes didn't turn out right later on, and we've ended up needing a player that we weren't speculating. We were just okay with how he was, sort of thing, irrespective about how the attributes came out. And this is the guy, and he definitely, that's the thing, compared to our current central midfielders in our youth squad, he was just going to start every single match, pretty much. And, so that's fine. The DCs, we got 2 of them. In particular, it's 3 actually, but 2 that are intended to be DCs. It's quite interesting because we only need 1 or 2, maybe, depends on the tactic. There is definitely a question about our youth team. Ideally, we want them playing the same tactic as our senior team, but we're certainly not there yet. I don't know how long it will take us to get there. It's going to just depend on the opportunities and the players and stuff. So I think loosely the plan is that, I don't know if we'll play this tactic exactly, but the thing is, we've got these fullbacks that at the end of the day, we're using them probably. We're using a tactic that includes them as fullbacks, and then there only really becomes a decision that exists for us as and when we receive a transfer bid for them. We may sell them. So the timeline for changing the tactic might be selling the players. Having said that, it also depends on if we pick up anybody else. I don't know. To some degree, I think we probably want to morph our youth tactic into the same as our senior one over time, just depending on opportunities, and effectively just, construct whatever we can as we go through that process. But the thing is, we also want to get promoted, so it needs to be something that makes sense and whatever. So I don't know. At the moment, the thing is, with those other DCs we've got, with this, these fullbacks in particular, we've got a solid-ish enough defensive foundation that as long as we put something in front of it that can create chances and score goals or score the odd goal or whatever, we will compete. But as soon as we give up these fullbacks, that may just not be true anymore at all. We may be really bad defensively and bad offensively. So just need to be careful of that. I don't know. I feel like on the whole, though, it just depends on what opportunities come. So we can't plan too much. But just going back to the trialists, all I'm really trying to say is we may end up playing 3 DCs, but probably initially it will just be 2. And when it's just 2 DCs, only one of these 3 guys will start. It will be one of these 2. The other one, will have to get appearances off the bench. The other 2 to some degree. Yeah, we're okay with them. I mean, this guy's more primed for the bench because of the low endurance and natural fitness. So this guy probably starts, and he's got low endurance as well. One of them probably starts and comes on for the other guy. Probably this. It's probably this guy that ends up starting because he's probably a bit better. and he's got the higher natural fitness, so he'll basically be tired going to half time, get a chunk back, be over 80% and then come down to 80, maybe around the 55th minute mark, something like that. Then we sub him off. Then the other guy comes on and hopefully he can play like the last 35 minutes before he's too tired, sort of thing. Something like that. So these guys basically will just share one DC role between them. And we'll be doing one thing for us to bear in mind, though, is that we will be using us as a substitute on them every single match, basically. So we've got this striker. Now, youth team has a striker that we're happy to start, but if we want to run two, this guy will probably start, or he'll come off the bench. But either way, I think for next season in particular, as long as we'll start this guy for sure. One of these two DCs will start. This keeper will start. So 3 of these will certainly start. And then we're saying one of the DCs probably won't. And then out of these, both of these won't start. Because we could add striker to this guy and start him potentially. But if we do, then this guy definitely won't start. If we don't, then maybe this guy starts. As to whether we add striker or not to this guy, I mean, we probably do. It's just... to be honest, we probably just do, and we probably just start him up front. That's what it comes. That's probably what happens, and we probably just need to pick our manager skills with that in mind. So yeah. So at the end of the day, assuming we do that, we've got our DCs covered. To some degree, we could with these batch of graduates, for example, going back to our youth squad, we're kind of covered, to be honest, because we've got 3 21-year, 4 technically with a bench, but he never plays anyway. So from the team that matters, that plays, it's the keeper that's coming out, but we'll have a starting keeper coming in from the graduates. We'll have a DC going out, but we'll have a starting DC coming in, and a better bench DC as well. And we'll have this striker coming out and another thing. But the thing is, we could play the same tactic, but the issue is basically that the reason why this tactic works so well is because of basically Octai and Lorena. And they will be out, and instead we'll be putting 2 16-year-olds in. It just won't work anywhere near as well. That being said, we could still try it in some friendlies and stuff, because at the end of the day, yes, it won't work as well, but it's basically been winning every single match. And we don't have to, we don't have to win every match to get promoted. We just have to win enough to get promoted. So it might be good enough for that. And at the end of the day, like, everything just slots in, and we can just sort of take it from there. So we're not sure, but anyway, it's not too bad, I guess, as a season review. As for the graduates, it's okay. As for the senior squad, well, let's look at the youth squad now that we're here and talk about it. So next season, the youth squad is basically these fullbacks. Well, let's just click on a guy and we can scroll through them. So this guy, he'll be out, and he's not good enough anyway. So at this point, we'll just sell him, or we're looking to sell him. He is worth enough that we probably wait for the transfer bid for him if we don't need the squad space. This guy, we could just sell now, but we can't because, space or whatever. So we probably just look to sell this guy. I don't really see us ever using him for the senior team. That's the thing. Having said that, he didn't end up on the bench because of injuries, but I just don't really see that, I don't see it. Like, we probably just sell this guy. He's not worth much, so yeah. He's just too slow and he's just too weak in so many areas, basically. So anyway, moving on. This guy just won't be in the youth team next season. We'll just be looking to sell him. He did alright or whatever, but we don't really want to use AML and AMR as a general thing, so we will be looking to sell him, but there's just an issue that we just don't have enough players. So he'll hang around as long as we don't have enough players, but it's not really something we want to look forward to. And he's not bad, but he's not great either. But basically, we're just looking to move away from this guy, I guess is what I'm saying. This guy, I think, he might be one of the last ones to go, to be honest, just because he does play multiple positions. He can sort of pass and tackle for the DMC. He's not great, but at the end of the day, he's a pretty good backup. It's a pretty good backup because he can play multiple positions, especially if we continue to play left back and whatnot. So I think, he has got a load of deficiencies, mind you. Like, can't mark, he's slow, not great in the air. He's got the decent vision or whatever, but he doesn't have the good passing, so he's not particularly good deep line playmaker or anything. Like, but yeah, anyway, I think he might be around. He'll be one of the last ones that we get rid of, and it could be quite, yeah. So this guy, I think, again, like, we just be looking to get rid of him. He's just at 18, he'll be 19. These attributes are just not where they need to be at all. We'll just be looking to move off of him. Probably we'll move off of him before this guy, just because we've got a whole bunch of DCs coming through. But again, like, probably holding on for this guy, for example. Well, it depends a bit, because these guys are worth enough that it does make a little bit of a difference when you get the bid. So, to some degree it'll make sense. It'll be dependent on the transfer bids as to the order that we give up these guys. But the transfer bids aside, we probably would be looking to get rid of this guy after the left and the right winger, but before the DM guy that can also play left back. So this guy, right back, again, like, we will want to move off the fullbacks at some point, but it's going to be dependent on getting the bids for them, and additionally dependent on having picked up some other players, potentially even beforehand. So we have to pick up the replacements first, basically be able to move to some other tactic first before we even sell these guys. So even just getting the bid at this point, I don't even think that's enough, just about. This guy, I think he should just score a bucket load of goals next season, although I don't know if he'll end up good enough long term for the senior team. He's probably not quite where he needs to be. Like, a lot of these attributes, for example, are not, he's only got one attribute that's even into the 70s, and he's had 3 sets of training boosts applied so far. But yeah, at the level that we'll be at, he'll score a bucket load. I'm just saying, by the time he's, say, 21, 22, we might be in Division 2, Division 1, whatever. Well, I don't think he'll be good enough at that level. So, again, it's just another player that we'll keep an eye on. Unfortunately, I think we will need the bucket load of goals from him next season to get promoted, because our youth team just won't be that strong. They really are going to need the goals. But we might pick up another striker that can score those goals, that has a better long-term future than this guy. And then we can look to sell this guy. But again, this is worth enough that we wouldn't really want to be looking to sell him either, unless we had the transfer bid. So he would still hang around, so to speak, until we got the bid. This guy, I think we'd just be looking to move away from, but probably just about the very last one out of all of them. We'll see. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, later on in the process, we gave him quite a lot of appearances off the bench. This guy, yeah, we'll be looking to move away first before this guy, basically. So this MC will go first. Again, like, we'd sell this guy without the bid if we needed the space or whatever. Right now we can't sell him. And then the left back, the right back is better, pretty much. So, but yeah, again, I think we want to morph into the same as our senior tactic, but that may take more than all of next month. So yeah, we need replacements before we can clear out these fullbacks, basically. And then this guy, fine, he's good. He's playing a lot for the senior team. He should do really, really good at youth level. He has a separate issue that, just like we're going to have a bit of an issue with our DCs, that they've all got like 11 endurance, basically. This guy was needing to be getting subs quite regularly, but at the end of the day, he might still be good enough that you just leave him out there even if he's tired, pretty much. Not ideal, but we could do it. And this guy is basically just going to be the backup keeper next season, but we'll just be keeping an eye out for another keeper. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what almost happens, because he probably, yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird situation, to be honest, because we'll be starting the 16-year-old and we'll want to develop him up. Yeah. Anyway, so he's probably the backup. No future at all. But that's the thing. When you have the 16-year-old keeper, it doesn't even make sense to buy somebody else. I think it's just really the case that yeah, we've got a bit of a weird situation with the keepers and the youth going forwards, but we'll just deal with that. This guy's just not part of anything though, but he may just be the backup keeper for all the next season. Just on the basis that there's no real point to bring anyone else in just about, because we don't. If we're playing them, then we're not playing the 16-year-old guy. I think the reason we might in the end is if the youth team is just if we look like we're struggling to get promoted, then what we might do is just bring in a like a 21-year-old keeper, 20-year-old keeper that basically is just going to play a bunch of youth matches and just make sure we get promoted next season. So that might happen. But this guy basically just he's just around to be the backup, and if we buy this other keeper if we need them, then the 16-year-old graduate that we got will become the backup, and then this guy will just be sold. And then this guy, I just think, I don't know, for how many goals and how many chances we created with that tactic for our youth team, this guy did not at all get much for all of that attacking play for the role that he had. I think I'll just leave it at that. He's way behind where he needs to be at his age. We definitely want to be just playing somebody else to develop them up. So I think, yeah. And then this guy, it's just another one. Like, we don't really want to be using this guy. We will. We just don't want to be using him. There's no real future here with 28 passing and whatever. It's just. And then this guy again, like, we just want to move away from the unlike the other guy, the right winger, who's sort of decent. This guy's just not really good enough for whatever anyway. So we'll be looking to move away from him. This guy, he probably just hangs around for all of next season and starts, I imagine. Especially in any tactic that's taking advantage of that long shots. But again, no real long-term future here for this guy. Just here to help the youth team win next season. And then this keeper's he's 21, he's going up and will just be sold. 21, not good enough. 21, and we're back around to here. So in summary, we're basically saying, as far as players that we would sort of use next season, I think we're saying it's the left back, it's this Valai guy, it's the right back. This Chapa guy would probably be just a bench guy in the end. We'll use Sagnarini next season, but we want to not use Carabello. We have that graduate, we can just use him instead, the MC graduate. This Gouveia we don't want to use. So, and we don't have any player coming in instead, so we're just going to have to keep an eye out or whatever. And Arena will go up, and we got a youth player coming through. So, and then as far as the benches are concerned, basically, Mackless we're happy to maybe keep around a bit, but basically, effectively Mackless will be 20, and then I guess the idea is when he's 21, he's just going to take over Sagnarini's role. That might be what happens if we don't pick up somebody else in the meantime. So, but then all these other guys, we're just looking to sell all of them. The only one that we're looking to not actively not looking to sell. So there's not much. There's a bit here. There is a bit here, and then obviously we'll have our six graduates that will all basically play key roles in our youth team next season. And yeah, so we'll be on the lookout for players a bit for the youth. So I think that's the youth in summary. In regards to the senior squad, we picked this keeper up with the lower wages. We sort of want to work towards him being good long term. Obviously, he's not ended up with a particular. He only played 11 matches in the end. We just got to hope a bit on the training options for next season. We got a nice combination of our three central defenders for the roles. These guys, they all have the right. They're all really well suited to each of these roles. We're fundamentally very happy. Boothway's a bit old, a bit high wages. So we could think about that, but the other guys are fine. Again, I think with the Boothway case, it's really just a case of like, if we happen to stumble across. So we bought him knowing that like if we would effectively have him for next season and the season after, sort of thinking that's guaranteeing us promotion for those 2 seasons. But we might be pretty borderline at this point anyway, guaranteed that anyway. The team is pretty strong. But again, like I think this Boothway guy in particular was was kind of like a pretty decent part of that. Like, he did really well, to be honest. I just know, like, a lot of matches he just completely, you can just see here, like, for what in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what is it, 9 training league matches. So he got injured for 3 out of 9. He got man of the match in 4, and like, he just completely dominated, basically. So I think it is the type of, you know, we're okay if we have a player getting, like, what was it? Was it literally 4 man of the matches in 9 games? Yeah, like, if you have a player getting nearly half the man of the match awards in all of the matches that he plays, like, you're happy that you're okay that he's 27 and whatever on these wages. That's the thing. Like, if he's dominating that much, plus he's not that old, he has scope to get a bit better. He's got a decently high ceiling. His rank isn't that high in the end, but, you know, it's still a lot better being a little bit than nothing. That's the thing. Quite the difference still. So I think Harburg is one that he does have the 78 passing. Ideally he would have more vision, and then he'd just be great for what we want, but he doesn't. So we are just on the lookout. I think we're happy for this guy to be the backup conceptually, but from the attributes perspective, but not from the age perspective. I think ideally the backup would be, you know, somebody in our youth team that's playing this role, and we would have him. Yeah, but anyway, until we find we're happy for this guy to sort of be the stopgap and get us by until we find the players we want. So effectively, he's a bit different to Boothway. Boothway is just like, is the perfect player almost for the role that we want him for. Geez, average 9.22. Whereas this guy is not perfect. He's just, you know, he's just around until we find someone better. He was one of the first players we picked up. Not quite sure the exact order. He might have been, well, let's have a look. Pretty sure he was quite early on. So transfers in, date. Yeah, so he was literally picked up on day 1, right? Very first day we got him. So many players we picked up on that first day, hey. This one was a mistake, but yeah. And this guy we knew was a stopgap. So a mistake and a stopgap that are sent out. These are the 2 fullbacks in the youth team that we were looking to sell. Sorry, Moreno and De Jong. This guy is ended up being the backup wide midfielder, possibly long term. And Sarir is playing quite a bit. So this guy, super flexible, played really well as well. Very happy with this pickup. Can play both the more defensive wide role as well as the attacking one. More suited to the defensive one. Like, yeah, I think this is a great pickup for us. He'll be around long term. So far, sorry, to be clear, the players that we see, let's just keep going there. Inferno, too old, but does a great job, has the attributes for the box-to-box, but is a stopgap until we pick something up. 14 assists, got a lot of assists here, even in the friendlies got a lot, so he is, you know, very involved, is scoring some goals as well, but he's up and back, he's getting a lot of tackles and stuff as well, very involved, very good, he's just too old, so he's a stopgap. This guy, was sort of a bit experimental, let's say. Just I'm not sure exactly how important the speed would help the box-to-box. We'll keep going with the experiment because he's so young. Effectively, I'd say so far, though, not worked out. I feel like impact-wise, the other central midfielder, the older guy, is just generally more impactful in matches. It just feels that way, like, not only in terms of, well, assists, but also just in terms of, like, overall impact, like passing the ball and making tackles and stuff. I just feel like he's better. So having this type of player, for example, who's just really quite well-rounded versus this player who's much less well-rounded, in particular not that great at tackling, way less well-rounded but fast and whatever. I feel like the more rounded player is better on the whole, but again, it's hard to say because part of the reason why Inferno might be, you know, it is helping the fact that one of them is faster to help with the offset so that they're not getting in each other's way a lot. So we need to consider that. because the whole double box to box thing wasn't really working, except when we got this guy. Then it was working better. So we do have to keep that in mind. But I think the main thing to keep in mind here is like not through this Ben Yusuf to try to get rid of him or whatever. It's more about when we're getting the net, because we had a central midfielder, was it today even, in the scouting pool, and we were like, he's just this less well-rounded, fast version like we have, and we passed on him for that reason. What we need is a more rounded one that I think in particular is good at passing and tackling. I think I think we can use this almost as a template, almost, because he plays so well for us, I think. So I think as a template, we're basically saying what's important is possibly what he's high at, right? So we could take that as, well, what's important: passing, vision, tackling, and aerial ability. We really need to seriously go keep an eye on matches, look at the match stats and whatever. I think it's almost goes without saying that the passing, vision, and tackling is going to be important, but need to pay more attention with the aerial ability, how important that is or isn't, and we can look at the stats. And then also the other thing to be aware of is that the speed is decent here. He's not slow, he's just not fast. So I think, sufficient amount of speed, let's say. And he's just generally very well rounded, like a lot of stuff around the 50 something sort of level. So, right. So we're looking to move away from him. Bazile, he's just the fourth choice wide midfielder, and we will just keep him on board as the fourth choice wide midfielder. Ideally, the fourth choice would become, would have the same. Basically, like the ideal situation here is that the youth team is playing the same tactic as the senior team, and effectively, like the fourth choice in the depth charts of these things. In the case of wide midfielders, we run two, so the third choice would be a senior player on the bench every game, and then the fourth choice would be starting in the youth team, and then the fifth choice would be the other wide midfielder starting in the youth team. Like that, ideally that, and the same with the centre halves, right? Like ideally we'd have the three senior ones, the fourth choice on the bench would be a senior player, but then the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth choice DCs, or maybe even the fourth choice if we had a particularly good one in the youth team, but they would be from the youth team. So basically, like something like us, in a roundabout way, I guess what I'm saying, what we're building towards is like the senior first 18, like the starting 11 and the 7 benches, so to speak. They are like the senior players, but everything beyond that is just from the youth team, and maybe even some of the 18 are from the youth team. That's kind of what we want to be building towards. So we don't really want to have, for example, any of these type of players in the team existing. This guy's just come back from injury, so that's not a good example. He would be like that, and he would be. It's not a good example, but yeah. The ones are, for example, this DC, we just ideally don't have him here. This DC, he's ideally not here. This DC, he's ideally not here. And yeah, but we don't have the depth coming from the youth team yet. This is part of the problem. So, right, but we'll get there. So, yeah, and then going through, where are we up to? Raphael and Garrido. We were talking about Bazile. Basically, he's just around as the fourth choice, pretty much like for next season until we get another fourth choice. But that other fourth choice is going to be from the youth team, and we don't have any wide midfielders in the youth team yet, so he could be around, but we're okay for him to be around. This guy is our starting attacking right wide midfielder. I would say, on the whole, he's been a disappointment. I think we've just overestimated how important the speed and sort of the dribbling and strength and whatever is. I think we've just overestimated the importance of it. It's just maybe in other tactics it is that important, but for this tactic it just isn't. I think part of the problem is that quite often that burst of speed in the role, that burst of speed and the strength and the dribbling in our tactic, in the role that he plays, it quite often leads to a goal scoring chance for himself. That's the problem. And then he's got 20 finishing, 28 composure, and he misses it. So if he had 70 finishing, 70 composure or whatever, then he would be a much better player. But that's, it's kind of obvious. But and so that's one issue. And the other issue is that, or it leads to a cross, which is not particularly good at crossing. And then we also don't really want him passing the ball because he's bad at passing. So you sort of have this situation where he has these good attributes to be able to do something off the dribble, but then whatever it leads to, be that some kind of shot. Long range shot is an exception here, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Be that a shot from inside the box or whatever, a close range shot. Be that a cross. Be that pass. It's just all bad. It's the thing. There's no end product. Now he is decent at long shots, but the issue is just the role there because we have him basically just attacking, operating up the wing here, and he does kind of can beat a player and then cut in the box. But if we want to take advantage of the long shots, we need to get him way more central, and it just doesn't make any sense to have him central in the long shot range when he's got such horrible passing. That's the thing, because when you're in that spot, quite often the move is to pass it, not to have the long shot. So I think on the whole, I think we just need to look to move away from this guy. Luckily, it wasn't a particularly expensive mistake. We only paid $365k. If we get the bid, we'll get something back, and even then, like, he's not done horribly bad. I just think, we just need to keep an eye out and pick up another wide midfielder. I think is what it comes down to. I'm not even quite sure, to be honest, it's clear cut that this guy should be starting over this guy. Maybe this guy should be starting. Anyway, so this is at the moment is our third choice. Maybe he should actually be the second choice and the other guy should be the third choice. We'll work that out. But yeah. So he's got the better passing, he's got better crossing. There's more end product here. He's not as good at like beating the players. He's not as fast and not as strong and whatever. He's not as good as beating the players up the wing, but the thing is he's got more end product. He can cross it, he can pass it, and also if he gets the close range finish, it's not great, but it's still way better than the other guy. So yeah. Room for upgrade here, I would say. And this guy as well, he's not also... Thing is, we're lacking the player that's actually suited to that attacking role, to be honest. We're lacking the player that... So yeah, so there's something to find. There's some improvement here. This guy is good for the up and back role, but again, we don't want him getting in the box, having shots, or long shots. We don't want him shooting at all. So he's he's much better suited for that role that sort of comes up and back here, and the crossing isn't great or whatever, but on the whole this guy he stabilizes things really well when he's coming back to defend in the wide midfielder role. So we think that guy's got a long-term future. Dokken, we'll talk about him a loads. The real issue with this guy is that he's just not good enough for the role that we have. He has so many shots. Some games he has 10 shots. Lots of matches he's having 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shots. Has so many shots, so many positions where he gets into where he just... A goal should be coming, basically, from him, or he can lay it off to set up a great chance, and he gets so many of those chances every game. A lot of half chances as well. Let's say so many. He gets those types of chances every game, it feels like. He gets loads and loads and loads of half chances. He just gets so many opportunities to shine, so many opportunities to win the match, so many opportunities to do something. He just gets so many opportunities. He gets the ball so much. And the issue is just, if you have 9 shots inside the box, do you really want them all being to the guy that's got 57 finishing and 36 composure? This is the issue. If you have needing to some situation where the needle needs to be threaded, so to speak, to get the perfect pass to get the ball to your striker so he can tap it in, with the ball at the feet of the guy that's got 51 vision and 67 passing, if he's picks the ball at the top of the box or whatever, and he needs to sort of burst past the defender and ride the tackle or whatever, beat the tackle, and then all of a sudden the world opens up, he can do anything when he's got 27 strength. The issue is more that he's okay, but he's just so far from perfect. So far. I think we came back to it a little bit before. Like, he's the kind of player you're happy to be the backup. Now, I don't know if you're happy to pay that kind of wages for the backup. That's another question. But, for now, I think we're just rolling with it, and we fully realize, fully appreciate exactly how big a deal it is for us if we pick up the right player for this role. And when we finally get into a financial position to be bidding on auctions, this is basically trying to get this guy is what we'll be looking for, and also in our scouting pool, because occasionally an expensive player comes through, and again also with the adding the position, we just need to be really conscious of the fact that this is just a clear upgrade path to our team, improving the player in this position. Also at the moment, if he gets injured, we don't have anybody else. It's like tactic change if he gets injured. I think the logical thing though, if they're both available, is just to play these two strikers though, so we have a path. It's just a different type of tactic. But there is a clear, obvious path at the moment. If they're both available, obviously they both might not be. This striker, I can just see him having a long-term future if he keeps developing. I think, namely, by that really is there's not a lot that needs to happen here. I think he just needs, as long as his finishing and composure keeps going up, almost it doesn't even matter if anything else goes up. He'll be good enough for us. This keeper, we bought him early on. It was a mistake. I think we should just, I don't know. Thing is, with some of these early mistakes, I have to say, like, they weren't necessarily, it wasn't immediately obvious that they were mistakes at the time. I think we severely underestimated how many, well, there was two parts to this, honestly. So one is that we wanted to make the content. We wanted to start just making content. It started as me just making a few videos and seeing if it was the type of thing we wanted to do, and we couldn't really make anything if I didn't really do anything. I needed to buy some players, I needed to do stuff. So that was part of it. So part of it was just sort of like an impatience to just, I don't know if that's the word, but it's like an impatience to just buy some guys to do something, to create something for the series to see, even if we wanted to pursue it, basically. So that was part of it. Another part of it was just a complete underestimate of how many great opportunities we would have in the scouting pool through the month. Basically, like, when we got these early players, we definitely looked, well, if we don't get this guy now, we may not get any guy that we're happy with. But there was so many players that we were happy with throughout the month. So that wasn't a problem, basically. So I think this is just there was, multiple keepers that maybe not quite as good as this guy, but thing is, like, we weren't sure at all that we'd get another sort of keeper that was anywhere near as good as this. So I don't know, like I said, I think it was a combination of those two things, really, so I would say, so quite a few mistakes were made because of those two reasons, just basically. So, and this keeper was one of them. Now, we have picked up the younger keeper with the lower wages that we'll develop up that we think is good enough. We're waiting for the bid on this guy at the moment to sell him. Or when we're just desperate because we need the cash because some opportunity comes. This striker here is a bit of a weird one, because he's like our backup striker, but he does play every single match, and he's quite high impact, as you can see here with the goals. He's got some clearly defined strengths and weaknesses. I kind of feel like it's very difficult to justify paying 500k for a bench, but when it's a bench that plays every single match and scores 27 goals or whatever, like, it's easier to justify. He's also pretty young, can develop. And also if Lorena gets injured or whatever, he's going to start. If Dokken at the moment, if he gets injured, then he's also going to start. He's literally playing every single match in some capacity. He's the one. I think that's the one type of bench that I'm happy to pay the higher wages on. Is the player that, one, is just starting often anyway because of injuries, and two, even if they're on the bench, they are literally coming on every single match. and they're typically pretty high impact as well. So this player, no future, just waiting for, in this case, waiting for transfer bid to come for him. This player, I would say at this point, he might still be around a bit longer. He's sort of decent for the attributes or whatever, so he's like, we're not in a hurry to move off him. He's a bit like this Bazille guy, like, we will move off of him as and when we get the replacements, but we're happy with how good he is as a squad player, as a player that comes in when there's injuries or whatever. In this particular case, he is also he is also the first choice MC on the bench, but so even when we get another MC, he still might hang around, to be honest, as the fourth choice MC. So that guy could be around for a bit, but no real long-term future, but he could have a future for all of next season potentially, or a huge chunk of next season. Same as Bazille. So these guys could basically be around for I don't expect that they will be around for all of the season after next season. Probably will get rid of them by the end of next season with any luck, or at least early the season after. So not long-term future, but some future. This guy we sort of loosely covered. Again, I think this guy, he plays okay. He feels good. Feels good when he plays. I think the main problem with him is just the tackling is low, and he's for this up and back role. So up and back wide role. This, not the attacking one, but the other one. So can upgrade him. So we've got two wide midfielders that we're okay to go with that we can upgrade at some point. Right, Lopez, I think just no real future. He's just here because no other DMC. This guy, could have a future potentially. Just depends on the training options and stuff. And long-term future, but also he's just going to play a lot how he is now, regardless, for the next couple of seasons. So, and play for the youth as well, and be an important part of the youth. This keeper, we're happy to have him as the backup for next season at least. We're still on these low wages. I'm not sure after that. We'll just play it by ear after that. But for now, we're happy for him for next season. So at this point, we're just basically waiting for a bid to come in for Canales. Sell him, and then this guy will be on the bench, and we'll start various. Klingenberg, just starting squad, just bad. Just looking to move off him, sell him. It's just a case really of we could potentially do that now. By the way, could do that any moment. We kind of got I think the main thing is that we would probably start Newman over him, but Newman's old, and that could all change after his next set of training options. Martins, again, we'll just move away from him longer term, but in the immediate term, he's better than Klingenberg, and it's just such a weird situation because Newman at the moment, I'll say weird, but Newman at the moment is the player that if we need to start one of these three guys, he's the one that's the better one to start, and then Martins, and then Klingenberg. But the thing is, Newman doesn't have to get much worse, and he slides from being top of that list to bottom of that list. Okay. Alright, I had to do a pause there in the video. I think we worked out how to do it. Let's see if it works. So, so I think there is a difference now, though, as well, that we had diabolically bad DCs in our youth team. So I think if you compare this guy, for example, to the graduates that are coming, probably we'll just run the play the graduates. So I think there is a question about this guy probably won't play at all. So there is a question, I think, should we just sell him now? It's a reasonable question, but probably is the answer. But I'm not going to be doing those type of things. I'm going to think about it more after or whatever. I think there's a chance we would. There's a question about he still is going to be technically better than those graduates, so a bit. Like, we'd just be okay with using them if we had to. So, there's a question there. Whether we should maybe just wait for when we get the bid. It's still like not nothing, right? It's still 10k. It's kind of nothing. It's kind of not. If it takes 10 days to get the bid, then you know what? I almost can't even be bothered trying to. Yeah, I mean, there's another aspect that he is 26. He does have some training rank. He could. Let's just not just. I was just going to click sell, but let's just do it properly and put that in a video and do the analysis on that separate. But yeah, that guy could just be sold. Potentially so could Newman. Potentially all three. That's the thing. But they are still better than the graduates. So anyway, so for now, there is a bit of a thing here with a depth issue with the DCs in particular. Basically, because we are running 3. So it is totally, we should almost expect that a decent chunk of the time one of them is going to be injured. You're going to expect sometimes it could be 2 out. In the crisis, there could be 3 out. So, yeah, they just helping with that depth. And that's, yeah. So anyway, arguably we should just sell all 3 and just buy one extra senior team centre half. Just an extra good one that can play all 3 roles or whatever. And then this guy should be the 4th choice. The guy that we buy should just be there. And then we're probably okay. If we get into sort of like that way, we'd have another guy and these 3 would be the first 4 choices. He'd be the 5th choice. And if we get into 6th choice territory, then, so be it. It can be one of those 16-year-old youth guys, basically. So I feel that's the proper solution. The proper solution is probably just to buy another DC that's like 22-ish, basically young. So we'll keep an eye out for that. But again, just not a priority, basically, because we're quite covered there versus a lot of other positions where there's much more priority. So, like anyway. But again, it's just a case of what opportunities come up for us, so we'll see what they are. So I think that's the senior squad. On the whole, yeah, longer term, if we're talking beyond the end of next season, going forwards, from what we would like perspective, the opportunities permitting, I guess we'll probably keep this keeper, these 2 central defenders, possibly this guy, this Rivera, Lorena, and that's about it. Maybe Valai. That's about it though. So we're kind of loosely open, maybe Saria. We're loosely open though to all opportunities everywhere else. I think they're the ones that. So Barrios, Octai, Catania, Rivera, Lorena. They're the only ones that I would have some high degree of confidence that they will still be in the team come the end of next season. Everyone else could potentially be gone, depending on opportunities. I think Boothway stands a good chance to be here, even though he's older. Of all the older ones, he's the one that could be here. I think the rest probably will all be gone. So yeah, so I think in regards to our squad, it's in a pretty decent spot though on the whole. We have depth, we can cover for injuries, we largely had it intact. We basically had our system, our players, whatever, something resembling what we'd want to do intact for that last training league. Let's just check the senior ones one at a time. So we started 8-3-1. We did buy quite a few players at the beginning, we had an evolving version of the tactic over time. Wasn't quite settled or whatever. Into the Winter League, we did a bit better. Got a few more players or whatever. Still evolving the tactic. I think in spring we had 2 back-to-back quite... I don't know, I hate to use the word unlucky. Kind of partially our fault or whatever as well. Sure. Losses, which makes it look a bit... I don't know, arguably we were a little bit on the lucky side and the other ones or whatever, I don't know, but I think this one in particular just... Yeah, anyway, there was those 2 matches, because I think we were basically 8-1-1 and then lost the last 2 from memory, something like that. So I think, loosely, but then in the last one, we because we were still chopping and changing the formation for injuries, just randomly trying things out. We're effectively still trying stuff out. That was the problem. In the last one, it was really the first training league where we didn't try anything out. We just stuck with... We had the system that we've worked towards, and we just stuck with it. Injuries happened. We stuck with the system. We were just lucky that the injuries didn't happen to the degree that it forced us to change the system, because it could have, but it didn't. So we got to stick with it. I mean, not only did we get 11 wins and draw, but also, you know, we scored 30 goals and conceded 4. It's kind of huge. And then, in regards to, like, overall, scored over 100 goals. Pretty good record, I'd say, but again, like, not too bothered. We weren't trying to win per se, we were just trying to put a team together. I think in regards to sort of like winning form or whatever you want to call it, this is better, you know, with this amount of matches, this is kind of like a better record. They might be ahead of where we're at in the present, but we're building more towards the future. And I don't know, it doesn't feel like they're a million miles ahead of us anyway. So, at least based on these records. We're doing our review. We won't bother clicking in to look at them or whatever, just to have a look, but maybe at some point we will. Because of all the teams, they're the ones that, you know, that you could look at and you could say that they could be... There's enough evidence to suggest that they might be better than us. I think the other ones is like, yeah, they could be, but there's not strong evidence here looking at the league table that that's the case. So... we'll look at that at some point. But for now, I think you could just say, like, just, you know, both the leading goal scorers. But again, we played more matches. So, don't know. It doesn't really mean anything much in the training league, to be honest. So let's not even get too worried about that. This is more of a thing for the other ones. I think we'll just go through our... The youth. The youth was pretty interesting because we did really well even with the starting squad, and we didn't even play any of the matches. So from here, it's like... basically anything other than winning every match is kind of just a relative failure, I guess you could say, which made it very difficult to not fail. So this one we won all 8, obviously super awesome record, 18 goals for, 1 against, very very strong showing. In that one, this one 7 and a draw, 20 and 3 though, so it's still way stronger than the first one overall just because of the goals and whatever, but the league was the same in the last one. 8 and 0 again, 23-2. So I feel like if you look at, what is it, the youth, autumn, if you take out those ones, what is it, 13 and 3 and 7 and a draw. So we're like 23 wins, 1 draw, 61 goals scored and 6 conceded in 24 matches. Kind of bonkers. We did very good there. We'll see. I feel like there's enough there to hopefully get promoted. And then in regards to the projection, the finances or whatever, we're okay. We got no more cash injections coming. So yeah, I don't know. We could. It's okay. We still got some money to buy. We got players we're willing to sell. Players that we probably shouldn't have bought to begin with, to be honest. But yeah, it's just like the finances. It's there. We're still not being able to splash big for any players in the auctions list. But as for our scouting pool, we can still pick up players. We will have to be picky though. That's the thing. We'll have to be picky because we have to sell at the right time and be picky and buy, because, you know, those cash injections, it's £20 million. It's not insignificant. We got £20 million plus the £5 million starting. We basically had £25 million given throughout the season, you know, of which we got 11 left. And it's not the end of the season. So this come the start of next season, what we'll have 10 and 3/4 million basically. So out of the 25, and next season, we'll just get the plus we have the 5 million gate receipts. So what is that? 20 million cash injections. We had 5 million gate receipts and 5 million in starting balance, I think. So we had 30 million. So out of 30 million, we've basically got 10 and 3/4 or whatever. So we kind of spent nearly 20 million this season. Next season, for example, we will get 10 million in, plus we've got a downwards projection. So, we can kind of spend, maybe more like 10 million next season, plus whatever we sell. So, we need to be very picky still, which doesn't bode well for our youth squad, to be honest, but yes, we'll see. So I think as a season roundup, there is we still have the contract extensions, so there is a choice there. I could tie it into this one. I don't know if that should be part of the season roundup, to be honest, because it could be quite the decision some months, to be honest. I think for this one it's kind of easy because we're just basically saying, so it's Barrios, Octai, Canio, and Rivera, and Lorena, longer term, basically, that we're sure of. So it's going to be them, a combination of them, and then your just question is, are there any of these at the moment that you just, do you spread them across? Do you whatever? Like Lorena, for example, is under contract for 5 seasons. The thing is, you look at someone like Catania and you're like, he's just going to be good. That's the reality. He's just going to be good regardless. Regardless of anything, especially if we continue to play this tactic, because we play 3 central defenders, so the idea that he's not at least going to be 4th choice is just ridiculous with how good he is. Coming for however many seasons. So, at least however many in the context of, obviously, if you're talking like in 15 seasons time or whatever, he'll be retired. But if you're talking about next season, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, that type of time range, like the idea that he's not at least going to be 4th choice is ridiculous. Whereas, I don't know, any of these other players, for example, he probably isn't less than 4th choice striker, but if you're only running 1, then anything less than 2nd choice isn't great to be using contract extensions, and even 2nd choice isn't great. Plus, he's already under contract for 5 seasons, so there's no real urgency to have to get a contract extension to him. We can definitely just play that one by ear for him. So I honestly just think you're saying in the Boothway as well, I don't think so. We potentially, and Octai is just not as, potentially his tackling doesn't get better and he's just not that great, and we do have to get rid of him. So I don't think, and this keeper, just loads of reasons why he might not end up that great. He's quite low in lots of stuff. I'm not as confident about him, and again, you don't want to use the contract extensions on a backup keeper. So basically, Barrios, no. Octai, no. Boothway, no. Lorena, he's already got 5, but in the absence of anybody else, maybe. And then you've got Rivera. Which I'm more confident about, but again, he's got a lot of deficiencies here still. I'm happy with him, but I'm not totally convinced that we wouldn't upgrade this guy. Basically. So, in other words, this list at the moment, I think, is distilled down to just Catania and Lorena. And Lorena as well, if his finishing and composure don't get better, then he's just not going to be around for more than 5 seasons either. So basically, it's just this guy, I think. So it's actually pretty straightforward. I think we know for a fact that we would be happy to have him for 6 seasons. So easy, so to speak. If we didn't want to do it that way and we wanted to only give one, no more than one contract extension to a player, just for the sakes of, I think like I said, I think we could have given one to Lorena, potentially, but and I think the other thing we could have done is given one to Rivera, Because again, like we probably replaced the other ones first. He could be around. The other wide midfielders, I mean. Yeah. Anyway, we could have done other stuff, but we've already done it now. So I think when we're talking through it, like we distilled it down. That's the thing. You definitely need to look at the length of the contracts of the players and ask yourself the question, like, is what are the likelihood that we'll want them beyond the length of their current contract? And the answer to that, to give them an extension, basically needs to be pretty confident, like really. So yeah. Anyway, all right. I think that is the season roundup. I'm not sure that there's anything else that makes sense to cover for this month. In future months, we'll get things like the rankings and stuff. We could start looking at them when we're in the divisions and stuff. We can pay more attention to the league records and stuff like that. We can pay more attention to the competition and stuff. There's a bit more we could cover. But for now, it's a nice round hour, so we'll leave it at that. So thank you for watching, and catch you for the next videos.